Greetings, my fellow philosophical thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to the LO3 podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful land of enchantment, and today's date is Tuesday, April 21st, 2020. Hopefully everyone's safe out there. I know some bad weather going on in the central United States, southern central United States to be exact. So, crazy weather, insanity, people uprising. And of course, you got some of the goody two-shoes want to block it and say you don't understand. Why? Because they may be losing their jobs. And of course, with the oils plunging really horrifically, and that could affect more layoffs, more people being unemployed. Can it be a trade war? Yeah. Is the order? The global elites are responsible for this? Yes, I am convinced they are. If you study history, they've been doing it for a very long time. And of course, they had defects on these COVID-19 kits. So more money being pissed away. Remember, there's chaos, there's opportunity. It's all out there. You have to barter, shop locally, to get the economy going, using sound money. Other means besides Federal Reserve notes or fiat currency. In addition to, looks like there's a great thing about a victory for the Sixth Amendment. I'm going to be talking all about these. So let's just start off here. Do a couple of articles from Epoch Times. The first one here is Washington State recalls 12,000 COVID-19 test kits by Tom Ozemic. As it reads here, Washington State authorities have recalled an estimated 12,000 COVID-19 kits due to possible contamination. The state's Department of Health said in a recent news release that it was notified by parties at the University of Washington of Medicine of a possible quality control issue in connection with the small number of vials of a special fluid used to keep specimens from COVID-19 nasal swabs intact during transport. Wow. Called viral transport media, the fluid in some of the vials had an unusual color. The state leaders confirmed the quality control problem was only found by a small number of the tubes, noting that there is no belief health risk to people being tested for COVID-19 as a potential contaminated fluid does not come into contact with patients. The quality control issue has only been observed in a small number of tubes of viral transport media. We adhered to the highest quality of standards for COVID-19 testing in Washington State. Secretary of Health John Wiseman said we are working with our partners to help them discard their product and will work to replace them as quickly as we can. People stand in line for COVID-19 testing at New York Health hospitals, Gotham Health, because this one here is in the Bronx. There's a photo of that. I'll continue on here. The recalled VTM did not impact the COVID-19 test results, health officials said, adding that an out of abundance of caution, they were ordering a recall of both the fluid and the nasal collection swabs. The state jurisdiction that received the kit in question have been advised to contact the health department about getting replacement tubes and swabs. The official said that while current supplies aren't adequate at the moment to make immediate replacements, a new shipment of swabs from a different vendor is expected to arrive this week. It comes after President Trump at the White House briefing Sunday address called by state governors for more federal help to expand testing. The president said he would be using the Defense Product Act with respect to one company to increase swab production for test. Officials and health experts say the country needs to dramatically scale its testing infrastructure if it's going to safely roll back restrictions and reopen business without risking a major spike in infections. Dr. Anthony Fauci, bureaucrat king himself at the moment, the nation's top infectious disease expert, Please. Told ABC's Good Morning America Monday morning that the nation is currently running about 1.5 to 2 million tests per week, but we really need to get it up to at least, maybe 2 times that, 3 times that. Trump says so far 4.18 million people have been tested for COVID-19 in America and called on governors to work together to enhance response efforts. We're encouraging them to share their successful strategies with governors. Some of the governors are doing a better job than others. The robust capacity that we brought online will empower governors to deploy sophisticated strategies so they can safely reopen their states. Trump said the administration is engaged in a delicate balancing act between protecting people from the CCP virus and restarting economic activity so Americans have the means to keep a roof over their heads to get enough to eat. Spurred by growing lockdown fatigue, more people took the streets over the weekend calling for a faster end to the lockdowns. China's Communist Party virus has spread aggressively across the world, with Johns Hopkins tally on Monday showing the number of infections in the United States has hit 760,570 according to Johns Hopkins, with the number of virus-related deaths standing at 40,690. So, more defects, I would say, more falters on these kits than negligence and don't know how to bring it, etc. Well, like I said before, there's some self-kits out there you can order it yourself and get enough for your family members. You can test it for 10 minutes and find out if you do have the virus or not, or you've been recovered. Something to look at. There's stuff out there, folks. If you think you're going to have the CDC and government knows best to come to these kits, forget it. Then you're living in a wet dream. Like I always said before in my past episodes, remain vigilant on your health. What really baffles me when I read some of these articles, like there's one liquor store in Brooklyn, the Crown Heights district, saying that almost every day was New Year's. And these people are just boozing the daylights out of their immune system. They may get stuck for something else, and they may call COVID-19. You better start using your brains out there. I'm not saying everyone's doing it, but a good amount. If you can't survive this ordeal, imagine what could be worse. Don't be surprised if something bigger is about to happen. Because right now you hear about the whole U.S. oil prices. It's even in the globe too. Everything's like plummeting big time into the negatives. So that means more people may get laid off. And this is from Epoch Times again. This one here says here, U.S. oil price plunges well below $0 as storage sites near capacity. It is by Peter Savab. Hope I pronounced his name correctly. U.S. oil prices plunged to unprecedented negative numbers on April 20th as a lack of storage space and weak demand forced oil producers and traders into the bizarre situation of paying anybody willing to take the oil. The price of West Texas Intermediate WTI, the leading U.S. oil price index to be delivered in May, dropped at one point to about negative $40 a barrel, before somewhat rebounding to negative $37.63. The negative price was caused by traders who realized that there is going to be a severe lack of capacity to store the oil about to be pumped out in the next coming weeks. The market quickly reached a point where storage became more valuable than the oil itself. Storage capacity has been scarce for weeks, while demand has dramatically slowed due to efforts to mitigate the global spread of the CCP virus. Contracts to buy oil produced in May need to be closed by April 21st on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Traders who speculate on oil prices close such contracts with no intention of obtaining the physical oil. Instead, they plan to sell the contracts later, hopefully at a higher price. As the deadline approached, it became clear how scarce were buyers who could actually take deliveries of the oil. Speculators stuck with the contract thus went into a frenzy to unload them. This is a reminder that you never say never in oil, said Phil Flynn, senior analyst at the Price Future Group. Futures Group. Sorry about that. Those that said that WTI would never trade negative were proven wrong from the coronavirus. It's a crazy time, he said in an email, where there's more oil to deliver than anyone wants. So far, the phenomenon seems temporary. For now, contracts for oil produced in June remain positive at around $20 a barrel. Industry in distress. The rock bottom oil prices threaten to wipe out a major part of the U.S. oil industry. WTI has been below $20 for a week now, while producers needed on average above $30 to at least cover operating expenses for existing wells. Some producers can pump at a price as low as $2 to $5 a barrel. Most, however, need much more. Many can't even turn a profit below $40, according to a survey by the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. Yeah, another central bank, right? To open a new well, oilers on the average need the WTI to be about $50. Well, how about if we just start and stop using fiat currency? The pandemic effect. The CCP virus, also called novel coronavirus, broke out in the central Chinese city of Wuhan around November 29th before spreading across China and the world. By April 20th, there had been over 2.47 million confirmed cases and nearly 170,000 deaths, with many more likely in countries with unreliable data. The pandemic prompted governments to impose stay-at-home orders and business shutdowns that forced millions into unemployment. With economic slowdown, demand for oil plummeted, leaving oilers scrambling to cut costs in production. Because producers have been lagging in their production cuts, we're seeing an overwhelming amount of crude oil looking for a place to go around the world, said Andy Lippo of Lippo Oil Associates. Crude stockpiles at the oil trading hub in Cushing, Oklahoma rose 9% in the week to April 17th, totaling around 61 million barrels, markets analysts said, citing an April 20th report from Greenscape. It is clear that Cushing is going to fill, and it will stay full for the next several months, Lippo said. Price war. The glut has been exasperating by price wars between Russia and Saudi Arabia that started after Russia walked away from talks on production cuts with the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, in early March. Both countries have escalated production, flooding the already shrinking market. Moscow, Grenada, and other major oil producers have since agreed to cut production by 9.7 billion barrels a day. But those cuts don't begin until May. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia is ramping up deliveries of oil, including big shipments to the United States. Worldwide oil consumption is roughly 100 million barrels a day, and supply generally stays in line with that. But consumption is down about 30% globally, and the cuts so far have been much less. Filling reserve. To prop up the industry, President Trump has ordered the filling of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which can hold about 700 billion barrels, but only stored some 635 million in January. Yet the 3 million embarked for filling the SPR was cut from the coronavirus stimulus package by Democrat legislators who criticized it as a big oil bailout. On April 14th, the Energy Department announced contracts with 9 oil companies to store for them in the SPR. Contract negotiations are for some 23 million barrels that should be delivered to the SPR in May and June, with possible early deliveries in April, the department said in a release. Awardees can schedule return for their oil through March 2021, minus a small amount of oil to cover the SPR's cost of storage. Interesting there. So they'll expect some cuts, layoffs in this industry as well. And it may be considered a potential world war. Remember when you got currency wars, trade wars, currency wars, world wars? It has happened at first too. We have to focus on that as well. And we could even say the banksters are involved. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not gonna put that to the side. So, happy. Well, get it while you can, kiddies, because when that time comes, expect everything to skyrocket to make up their damaged goods and stalls. So, this one here comes from the American Free Press, came out yesterday as well. And this was here, will the new global pandemic of COVID-19 retire the world's policeman? This is what Patrick Buchanan has to say. And they call him a racist, but you know what? I don't buy that crap. And at least he's pretty direct in a lot of areas. And he's a very good columnist writer, too. And this is what he has to say here. For declaring in March that the U.S. economy might be reopened by Easter, President Trump was roundly mocked. Yet it appears his political instincts were correct. He was more in tune with his country than were his critics. By early Easter weekend, Governor Andrew Cuomo and the governors of 6 states in the New York, New Jersey region have formed a consortium to synchronize the opening of their economies. California's Gavin Newsom and the governors of Washington and Oregon had done the same. Governors may disagree on the timing, May 1st or May 15th, but most agree with Trump. America cannot remain shut down for months without lasting damage to the livelihood and lives of millions of citizens who are about to be shoved into the new Great Depression. 22 million Americans are now unemployed. However, something just jolted the gathering consensus over the need to reopen soon. Tuesday and Wednesday, the U.S. set records for the number of fatalities from the virus. Tuesday, it was 2,364 dead. The following day, 2,371. That put the national casualty total for above 30,000. The U.S. did not record its first coronavirus fatality until February 29th. It took 38 days after to reach 10,000. However, it took only 9 days to vault from 10,000 fatalities to more than 30,000. The ominous implication, if this 2,300 dead per day figure is near new normal, we would surpass the 61,000 fatalities projected for the duration of the pandemic in 2 weeks. But if we reduce the Tuesday, Wednesday average daily death toll over by half to 1,000 deaths a day, that would mean 44,000 more dead, for a total of 75,000 by June 1st. What makes COVID-19 worse than the flu? The coronavirus is more easily transmissible. It's more savage in how it maims the immune system. It's more lethal, killing far more of the infected than the regular flu, though we don't know exactly how much more lethal, for we have no hard number of those who carry or have carried the virus asymptomatically, nor we do know whether having survived COVID-19 renders one immune to a new infection. Since the medical experts are predicting a second wave of the virus in late summer or fall, it is no small matter. And seeing what happens on the carrier, Theodore Roosevelt, the coronavirus could have a major impact on the U.S. global commitments. Americans were already coming home from the Middle East, drawing down our 12,000 troops in Afghanistan after a deal with the Taliban and moving our 5,000 troops in Iraq into fewer bases. We have disengaged from the Saudi war against the Houthi rebels in Yemen and are drawing down our forces in Syria. In Libya's civil war, it is the Russians, Turks, Egyptians, Gulf Arabs, not Americans, who are the supporting actors. American soft power is also in retreat from the world. Some 10,000 Peace Corps volunteers have been brought home. Scores of thousands of U.S. citizens have been repatriated by the State Department. We have shut the door to Europe, China, the world. What now becomes the U.S. geostrategic pivot, the shift of the planes, troops, ships, and bases from the Middle East and Near East to the Indo-Pacific theater, containing to a rising China. And containing China with what? The Roosevelt has been ravaged by the coronavirus. As of Tuesday, 589 cases of COVID-19 were reported from a crew of 4,800. 4,000 sailors in Guam are in the various stage of a 14-day isolation period in hotels and spare rooms across the island. But it is not just the Roosevelt. Every U.S. warship, carriers, cruisers, frigates, destroyers, subs have cramped quarters conducive to the spread of the coronavirus. How many of these vessels will soon be doubling as hospital ships? The same question also might be asked of the U.S. Army and Marine barracks in South Korea, Japan, Australia, and Okinawa. There are allegations about the coronavirus did not originate in Wuhan wet market, where bats are sold for food, but instead escaped through a horrible plunder in a Chinese bioweapons laboratory a few miles away. Whatever the truth, the Wuhan virus appears to have become the most effective means of disabling U.S. hard and soft power that we have encountered in many a decade. Of those 10,000 Peace Corps volunteers and scores of thousands of Americans who have been repatriated home, how many of the soft power soldiers will be going back after they have been out of their host country for 18 months? Will this pandemic prove the decisive factor in America's retreat from global hegemony? With the U.S. budget deficit for 2020 originally set at $1 trillion, now triple that, there's going to be a hard reckoning of the allocation of our diminished resources after the nation reopens. And the policing the planet is likely to be seen as yesterday's priority, as a primary candidate for discard. Yeah, so, and a good example, look what happened going on in Yemen. Okay, maybe a potential ceasefire. And that thing. So, you gotta look at, all sides to the coin. I always say, I have to agree with Congressman Paul, even Buchanan, hey, bring our troops home. Let's end the empire. So if it has to be based on this COVID-19, so be it. We need to take care of ourselves and restructure into a Republican form of government. I don't mean by a partisan basis. All right, so here's some cool good news. Came out yesterday from the Rutherford Institute. Victory. U.S. Supreme Court holds states accountable for abiding by Sixth Amendment standard of unanimous jury verdict in criminal cases. In a 6-3 ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court has declared that states must abide by the Sixth Amendment's requirement of a unanimous jury verdict for convictions in the criminal cases involving serious offenses, pushing back against the idea that the application of the fundamental constitutional rights is dependent on what the state you live in. The Rutherford Institute has filed an amicus brief in Ramos versus Louisiana, asking the Supreme Court to prevent the states from watering down the rights of criminal defendants and arguing that the right to unanimous jury in criminal cases, a right dating back in Magna Carta, should be uniform throughout the United States. The case arose after Louisiana man Evangelisto Ramos was convicted of murder and sentenced life in prison based on circumstantial evidence that failed to convince all 12 jurors that he was guilty. At the time, Louisiana allowed non-unanimous verdicts in criminal cases. In ruling 1972 President in Apodaca versus Oregon, the court incorporated the Sixth Amendment protection as being necessary justice and applicable to the states. The affiliate attorneys Michael J. Lockerbie, David A. Hickerson, J. N. Varon, and Heather A. Lee of Foley and Lardner assisted the Rutherford Institute in presenting its arguments. Justice should not be contingent on where one lies, said constitutional attorney John W. Whitehead, president of the Rutherford Institute and author of Battlefield America, the War of the American People. Thankfully, the Supreme Court recognized that the right to a unanimous jury verdict, which is firmly rooted in America's history, tradition, and conscience, is indeed fundamental to our scheme of ordered liberty. The case arose after Evangelisto Ramos was charged with murder based on circumstantial evidence for the stabbing death of a prostitute, Trinice Federson. Only 2 members of the 12-member jury believed that the state had not proven that Ramos committed the murder. Ramos was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole because of Louisiana law in effect at the time allowed a conviction based on non-unanimous jury verdict. In 2018, Louisiana's voters amended the state constitution to require unanimity, though only for crimes committed after 2018. In weighing in Ramos versus State of Louisiana, Rutherford Institute attorneys urged that the Sixth Amendment's right to unanimous verdict is a fundamental right fully applicable to the states. The Sixth Amendment provides that in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy their right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. The right to a trial by jury guarantees that an accused will be convicted only when all jurors, only the impartial persons who have the benefit of all of the evidence and for against guilt, conclude that the accused is guilty. Unanimity in jury verdicts is required where the Sixth and Seventh Amendments apply. In criminal cases, this requirement of unanimity extends to all issues. Charter of the degree of the crime, guilt, and punishment, which are left to the jury. The Supreme Court has recognized this unanimity requirement virtually without dissent since the 1800s, like the right to a jury trial and the right to a speedy trial. The common law to unanimous verdict dates back to the Magna Carta. And like the prohibition against double jeopardy, the right to confront witnesses, and the right to a speedy trial, every state incorporates some form of the right to unanimous verdict. Indeed, 49 of 50 states now require a unanimous verdict to convict of a crime, of accused of any crime, while Oregon only required a unanimous verdict to convict persons accused of the first degree. Well, this is why it's interesting about that, because it's good, because one, it's actually guaranteed, okay, under the Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, okay, and the states have to honor that as the U.S. Constitution, Supreme Court of Law of the Land, under Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution. Even the 10th Amendment says that as well, as long as it's not prohibited, nor prohibited. So, first you got to honor the U.S. Constitution, and thereafter it goes to the states and the people, reserved to the states and its people. So those are the areas you should always got to look at, because it's got to be in uniform. So remember, federal government has certain laws, certain enumerated actions they can do. And based on the Sixth Amendment, that's considered all in uniform to be part of the constitutional republic or union. So, hey, I think it's cheers. I'm very pleased about this. And everyone out there should always support the Rutherford Institute, because they're doing their thing as well to make sure your rights are protected. And that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media network. If you have any questions, comments, something that's interesting I want to check out, whatever you do, please share your correspondence with decorum. Hit that like button on YouTube, all that good stuff. And getting a comment here and there, which is cool. The more the merrier. In addition, I'll leave all my footnotes, these footnotes on this episode on my speaker page. Once again, thank you for your time. Please always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.